So good day, viewer. So you are welcome to my online biology class. In my previous class, we discussed about the introduction to biology. And we also discussed about the branches of what? Of biology. And we also discussed the difference between living organism and non-living organism. So in today's biology class, our next chapter is classification of living organism. So this classification of living organism is a chapters in biology that deal with what? The process of classifying all living organisms, identify and giving name to what? To living things. And the classification of living organisms can be divided as a process of grouping living organisms into two or more categories based on the what? The feature they have in common, evolutionary trait, and genetic makeup. That is what definition of classification of what? Of living organism. And the classification of living organism can be divided into two parts. Into two what? Two parts. We have artificial classification, and the second one we have natural classification. So in artificial classification, this kind of classification is based on what? The easy observable feature or characteristics of living organism. That's what they use to what? To classify all living organisms artificially. But the natural classification of what? Of living organism, this one is based on what? Evolutionary trend that is occur between living organism and genetic makeup in living organism. So those are the two criteria that they use to what? To classify living organism naturally. So after these two types, the next thing we need to know is what? The history of classification. So when we are talking about the what? The history of classification, the first scientists that classify all living organisms into two kingdoms in the 300 years before Christ, his name is what? Aristotle. And what? Aristotle. Look at Aristotle. He's a Greek philosopher, and he's the first person that classified all living organisms into two kingdoms. Classify all living things into the how many kingdom? Two kingdom. Which is what? We have two kingdoms. The first one we have kingdom what? Plantae. The second one is said we have kingdom what? Animalia. So Aristotle is what? Is the first scientist or is a great Greek philosopher that is what? Classify all living organisms into what? Into two kingdoms. Kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia. Based on the Aristotle classification is based on three what? Three things. What are the One is based on what? Morphology. Two, based on what? On morphology. It's based on morphology, structure, morphology, and habitat. Habitat. And the third one is behavior. See, the Aristotle classification is based on what? Three things: morphology, habitat, and what? Behavior. The Aristotle classified all living organisms into two kingdoms in the 300 years before what? Christ, and is the first scientist or first philosopher that will classify all living organisms. So he classified organisms into what? Plants and what? An animal based on three things. Number one is what? Morphology. What is morphology? The Aristotle classification based on morphology. Morphology means what? He studied the what? The physical appearance or outward appearance of both plants and what? An animal before he what? He classified them. Two, he looked at what? Their habitats. What is the habitat? Where they live. So some living organisms, they live on land, some live on water, some live on what? On air. That is habitat. Then the third one is what? Is behavior. He look at their what? Their behavior. So what kind of behavior is? Yes, the way they what? What they eat is kind of the what? Of the behavior, the what? The Aristotle used to what? To classify all living organisms into plantae and what? And animalia. So after that, this Aristotle classification now further classifies plants into three kingdoms. It later divided what? Plants into what? How many kingdoms? Three. Or it later grouped plants into the what? Into three. The first one is that we have tree. The second one we have herbs. The third one we have shrubs. That is what? The three class of the what? Of the plants we have based on the what? Aristotle classification. But this same Aristotle, he furtherly divided what? Or group animal into two parts. The first one, he said, some animals are bloodless animal. The second one, he said, some animals are blooded animal. The Aristotle classified animal into two classes. Said first one is what? Bloodless animal, the animal without what? Without blood. The second one is what? Is blooded animal, the animal that possesses blood. And this bloodless what? Animal, we can also call them what? Invertebrate. What is invertebrate? The animal with what? With backbone. And this blooded animal, we can also call them what? Vertebrate. So according to the Aristotle, the another name for the bloodless animal are invertebrates, animal without backbone. Any animal that has what? Blood, they are blooded, they have backbone, which is vertebral column. So the Aristotle now give what? Two examples of what? Of these. So we have fish. No, of these on a put mollusca. Mollusca. And it's also what? Put what? Insecta to this mollusk. snail, and insect, Aristotle used them as what? Example of bloodless what? Animal. And other blooded animal which is vertebrate, the Aristotle put what? Fish, and it's also what? We have bird, and we also have what? Mammal. So that is all about what? The contribution of Aristotle in historical development of what? Of classification of living organism. So the next person that came after Aristotle, his name is John Ray. John what? John Ray. So this John Ray was a British naturalist that is continuing the work of what? Of Aristotle in the classification of living what? Organism. And the John Ray is bring about what we call taxonomy, or we call what? The hierarchy of what? Of classification. So this man also has what? Two major contributions in classification of living things. The first contribution of John Ray, let me group it into the one into two. The first one is what? It talk about the what? Hierarchy. I what? Hierarchy of classification. And the second one is what? It develop or it thought is it develop or is bring the idea of what? Modern concepts. Modern what? Concepts of species. Hierarchy of what? Of classification, and a modern concept of what? Of species. John Ray, he came after Aristotle, and he has what? Two major contributions on classification of living organisms. The first one is what? Talk about what? The hierarchy of what? Of classification. The second one is what? It's talk about the what? The modern concept of what? Of species. And under the hierarchy of classification of John Ray, start we have what? The kingdom, king what? Kingdom, followed by what? Class, followed by what? Order, followed by genus, and followed by what? Species. He said all living organisms can be classified to the following taxon: hierarchy, which is what? Kingdom, class, order, genus, species. The species is what? Is the smallest unit of classification. So under his modern concept of what? Of species, this John Ray is the first person that is what? Talk about binomial nomenclature, nomenclature of living organism. Is the one that tell us that what? Is a must for all living organisms to have at least two names: generic and what? And species. So that is what? The basic two contribution of what? Of John Ray in what? In classification of what? Of living organism. And after John Ray, if you remember this John Ray, John Ray is like a okay. Let me worry. After John Ray, the next person that is came is called father of what? Of taxonomy. And his name is what? Let me put it here. Is Carolus Linnaeus. Carolus what? Linnaeus. So this Carolus Linnaeus came afterwards, John Ray. And what is the contribution of Carolus Linnaeus in the classification of what? Of living things. Before I go to this contribution, this Carolus Linnaeus is the guy came from Sweden. So we call him what? Swedish botany. Carolus Linnaeus. And this Carolus Linnaeus, his own contribution under classification of living things is what? Is built on John Ray classification. Are you with me? This Carolus Linnaeus is trying to what? To build on what? John Ray classification, or Carolus Linnaeus is trying to what? To develop the John Ray classification. This Carolus Linnaeus is also trying to what? To revive the work of what? Of John Ray. And it's also by written a book called, a book called Systema Natura. That is what? The book written by what? Carolus Linnaeus. And this book was what? Was published then. And the book is what? Is based on what? On classification of what? Of living organism. So, this Carolus Linnaeus, it has 4 basic contribution on classification of what? Of living organism. Like I said earlier, I said Carolus Linnaeus is what? Is revive or is develop the work of what? Of John Ray. So the first thing he did is what? He re-established or developed the what? The hierarchy of classification. This man developed what? The hierarchy of what? Of classification, which what? The John Ray is the first person that is what? And is talk about it. And in John Ray, we have how many hierarchy classification? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This Carolus Linnaeus now said what? The hierarchy of classification is started from the what? Kingdom, followed by what? Phylum. We use phylum for animal, and we use what? Division for what? For plant. Then followed by what? Class. Then class followed by what? Order. Order followed by what? Family. Family followed by what? Genus. Genus followed by what? Species. So you can observe that what? The Carolus Linnaeus hierarchy of classification is comprised of what? Phylum, family. But the phylum and family, they are not in what? The John Ray classification. So that's the first contribution of what? Carolus Linnaeus in the classification of what? Of living what? Living organism. So the second contribution of what? Of Carolus Linnaeus, or of Carolus Linnaeus in biological classification is what? Redefine the binomial binomial nomenclature, or modern concept of what? Of species. The other one is what? Is redefine what? Or develop the concept of species, or binomial what? Nomenclature, which was introduced to us by what? By John Ray. But this Linnaeus is what? Is develop it. He said all living organisms must have at least two what? Two names. What is two name? Call it what? By what? By nomia, no what? Nomenclature. And what? All living organisms must have at least what? Two names. The first one is called generic what? Generic name. And the second one is called specific what? Specific what? Name. So this generic name called from the word what? Genus. Specific name from the word species. And if you want to write what? The scientific name of any what? Organism. You will start from the what? Generic what? Generic name, which is what? Capital letter. And the second name, which is specific name, we can write it by what? By lower case. But if it's typing, if it's under system, you are typing it, the scientific name will be in what? Will be interlized. But if it is what? Written, like, let me write this as a case of let me write, okay, ig what? Iglena, Firidi. So this Iglena Firidi is what? Is the scientific name for what? For Iglena. This is what? Generic name, I started with what? Capital letter. This one is called what? Specific name, I started with what? Small letter. In written, then you underline it. But if it is what? In typing, there is no need for what to underline. You will write it and what? Interlize. So this is what? Interlize form, in printing form. So is the what? Linnaeus that tell us that what? If we want to what? Write scientific name of what? Of all living organisms, the first name with generic name must start with what? Capital letter. And the second one with species name or specific name start with what? Small letter. Then you will underline the two. But in case of what? Of printing or typing, you what? There is no need for you to what? To underline. You what? Interlize it. That is the second what? Contribution of what? Of Linnaeus. And Linnaeus also classified all living things into two kingdoms. Like Aristotle, into the kingdom what? Plantae, and the kingdom what? Animalia. And then once again, the Carolus Linnaeus is a Swedish botany. Swedish what? Botany. And it is what? Develop or is work on what? On genre classification. And Linnaeus has three contributions in classification of what? Of living organism. In his what? His book written called Systema Naturae. The first one is what? Is developed the what? The hierarchy classification of what? Of genre, by including what? Phylum and what? And family. The second one is what? He refine the modern concept of what? Species. By what? By genre, saying that what? All living organisms must have at least two names, generic name and what? And a species name. And he said the generic name and species name, generic name always start with what? With capital letter, where species name start with what? With small letter. If you are writing it in what? In the book or on board, you will underline the two. And this one must be what? Must be in what? Started with small letter, one carries the word with upper case. But if it is in written, there is no need for us to what? To underline, you what? Interlize it. The third contribution of what? Of Linnaeus is what? Is talk about what we call what? Classification. It's also classified living thing into what? Into two parts. So under this work of what? Linnaeus, I said, is wrote a what? A book under classification of living things called what? Systema Naturae. So under it, before we move to the what, the third scientist that is work on what, on the classification, the fourth scientist that is work on classification of living things, let us talk about the what, the work of Carol Linnaeus, which is lead us to the what we call taxonomy. Let me go to the book. So in the book of what, of Carol Linnaeus, called Systema Naturae, we have what we call what? Taxonomy. So what is taxonomy? We have taxonomy under classification though. So taxonomy can be defined as a science of identification, science of what? Of identification, nomenclature, and classifying all living organisms. The science of what? Of identification and nomenclature and classified all living organisms. That is what we call what? Taxonomy. The process whereby what all living organisms can be what can be identified, can be named, and classified is called taxonomy. And the father of taxonomy is what? Carol Linnaeus. Father of what? Of Carol Linnaeus, and in 1754. That's what? The Carol Linnaeus is the what? Is father of what? Of taxonomy. So taxonomy is the what? Is the process of what? Of classifying, identifying, and nomenclature or naming all living organisms. And this taxonomy can be divided into two parts. Into the how many parts? Two. The first one we have types of taxonomy. We have what we call what? Nomenclature. Nomenclature. And the second one we have systematic. What the second one? Systematics. So there are two types of what of taxonomy. We have nomenclatures and we also have what? Systematic. So what is nomenclature? The nomenclature can be defined as the act of giving name to all living organisms. The process of naming all living organisms is called nomenclature. The process of what? Of naming living organisms. We call it what? Nomenclature. And this nomenclature is guided by what? By a two what? Rules. What are the rules? We have, or what, guided by what? By a rules. Called by what? Binomial, no what? Nomenclature. What is binomial nomenclature? I've said it before. So what? Binomial nomenclature is the act, is a must for all living organisms to have two words, two names. The first one is called what? Generic what? Generic name. And the second one is called what? Specific. Generic name and specific what? Specific name. So that is what? The binomial what? Nomenclature. It says that all living organisms must have at least two names, generic name and what? Specific name. And we also have what? In a condition where generic name and what? Specific name of an organism are what? Are the same. Are what? Are the same. And that condition, we call it what? Tautonyms. We call it what? Tautonyms. Is a condition whereby what? The generic name and specific name of an organism are what? Are the same. For example, if you have what? Ratus, ratus. We underline it. See that what? This one starts with capital letter. Is what? Generic what? Name. Specific name or species name starts with what? Small letter. Ratus. And this is what? The scientific name for what? For rat. The scientific name for what? For rat is called what? Ratus. Ratus. But the generic name and what? And species name are what? Are the same, and the process is called what? Taxonomies. When the species and what? Same area are the same, it's called what? Taxo what? Taxonomies. But in another case, okay, don't worry about that. So, and we also have the what we call what? A situation whereby a living organism have what? More than two names. And the condition, we call it what? Trinomial nomenclature. Trinomial what? Nomenclature. Trinomial nomenclature. So this trinomial nomenclature is comprised of what we call what? Generic name, followed by what? Species what? Species name, and sub what? Sub species name. So for the trinomial nomenclature, you have what? Generic name, specific name, and sub-specific name or subspecies what? Species name. Example of animal that is have this kind of what? Trinomial nomenclature. We have gorilla, gorilla, gorilla. So this is the name for what? For gorilla. Here you underline, you underline, you underline. So gorilla has what? Three words, three names. Take for example now, if your full name, assume that what? My full name is what? Assume that what? My full name is, as option, is Galadima Abdullahi. Can you see it now? So this Galadima is served as what? I underline it, Abdullahi underline it. But this Galadima is capital what? Capital letter. Start with capital letter. But Abdullahi start with what? Small letter. So this Galadima is generic name, and the what? Abdullahi is what? Is specific name. So as also that what? My name, my real name is Abdullahi. Assume that my real name is what? Is Abdullahi. But my son name is what? Galadima. This Galadima is what? Is my generic what? Generic name in the family. All my brothers and sisters, all of us, we are bearing what? Galadima, which is what? Our generic name. But what make me differ from all my blood brothers and sisters is what? My own name, which is what? The specific name called Abdullah. But and we have some what? Some family that is all what? They will have what? Senior Abdullah, they will have junior Abdullah. Abi, in Yoruba, we call it what? Abdullah Kekere at Abdullah Agba. Abi now? So, in such case, they will give what? That Abdullah another what? Another name in order to what? Because they have what? Different kind of Abdullah in the what? In the same family. But what are they used to what? To differentiate this my own words, Abdullah. It will now lead to what our words, ancestors in Yoruba bring about the word, the third name. They call it what? Oriki. Abi? So, I want that coming what? Bola. Gbọ́ what? Gbọ́lá hàn. That's called Gbọ́lá hàn. That is my own what? Ori what? Oriki. Abi? So you now underline what this Bola hàn. If I include this Bonner now, it will become what? Trinomial nomenclature. It's no more what? Binomial. You know, we have some people among us that have got two names. So if you are using two names, you are using what? Binomial nomenclature. If you are using what? Three names, you are using what? Trinomial nomenclature. So this is what? Galadima, which is my son name, is what? Generic name. This Abdullah as what? My own specific what? Specific name. Abi, and this third one here, which is what? My Bola that make me differ from all other Abdullah in the family, is called it what? Subspecific what? Name. Have you know? So that this is what? How we write scientific what? Scientific name in what? In the classification of what? Of living organism. Are we? And let me give you like 3 or 4 more examples of what? Scientific name of what? Of animal. Like if you have what? Man. Yes, if you have what? A man now. Man. Generally, what is the scientific name for what? For man. The scientific name for man, you call it what? Homo sapien. Homo what? Sapien. You can observe that what this Homo is generic name, starting with capital letter. Sapien starts with small letter. Is what? Specific name. Or if it is what is inside book or on a laptop screen, it will be like this: Homo sapien. Interlized form without underline. And what is what? The scientific name for dog. Dog are called Canis domestica. The word canis of dog derived from the word carnaceous teeth. They are carnivorous. And we also have what? Housefly. Yes, housefly. The scientific name for housefly is Musca. Musca domestica. Yes, underline. If you want, you write a scientific name of any living organism without following the rules, you are in trouble. You are what? In trouble. So that is all about what? Nomenclature under contribution of what? Of Carl what? Carl van Linnaeus in 1754. And the second one is what? Systematics. If you remember, I said Carl van Linnaeus performed 3 basic functions in classification of what? Of living things, which his work is what? Is based on what? On genre classification. The first one I said, he rearranged or developed the hierarchy of classification by including phylum and what? And family. The second one, he refined the modern concept of what? Species, which is what? Binomial nomenclature. The third one is what? I said it before that what? He also classified all living organisms into what? Into 2 kingdoms. The way Aristotle did. Abi? And by Carl van Linnaeus to what? To clarify all into what? Into 2 parts. It will now lead us to what we call what? Systematics. And all these and systematics and taxonomy, we have it in what? In a book written by a Swedish botanist, which is Carl van Linnaeus. So the next thing now is what? Let us look at what? Systematic. Abi now? So systematics can be defined as the study of what? Of animal or diversity. Or systematic is what? Is the study of what? Of diversity of living things and evolutionary relationship among them. Once again, the term systematics is what? Is the study of what? Of diversity of a living organism and evolutionary what? Relationship between what? Between them. And the process of what? Of grouping living organism into what? Into their kingdoms is also called systematics. Abi, but who bring the idea of systematic to us is what? Carolus Linnaeus. Are you with me? So in this what? Systematic, I say what? Is the process of what? Of the study of the diversity of living organism and evolutionary what? Relationship between them. That is what? Systematics or process of grouping organism into what? Into the groups they belong to by using what? The evolutionary what? Trend or relationship between what? Between the living organism. So through this systematics now, the Carolinians now divided all living things into two kingdoms. He said what? Living organism, living what? Organism can be grouped into what? Into two. Into how many? Two. The first one, according to the what? Linnaeus. He said we have kingdom plantae. The second one, he said we have kingdom animalia. And according to the what? The Linnaeus, he said kingdom plantae comprise of these words, the following division. What is the fourth division of plantain according to the what? Linnaeus? He said we have division Schizovita. The second one, he said we have division Talophyta. Talo what? Phyta. The third one, he said we have division Bryophyta. The next one, he said we have division Pteridophyta. The next one, he said we have division Spermatophyta. If you look at what this Carnivalinear system of classification is said under what? Plant, we have 5 divisions. And under this, the Carolinius, it will now try to what? To group what? In this Schizophyta, the mark group bacteria here. In this Talophyta, the mark put what? Algae. It put what? Algae and fungi here. In this one, we have what we call moss plants and liverworts. In this one, we have what we call fern plants, and here we have the advanced plants we have in our surrounding, like mango tree, orange tree, palm oil tree, palm tree, and others in what? Spermatophyta. Well, this thing, in fact, we use it for many years. The assembly can say for many what? Many years. But look at bacteria, you put it here. We have algae, you put it here. Fungi, we have, you put it here. Mosses and others. And under this one, it will now what? Classify animal into two what? Into two. Instead, we have in what? Invertebrate animal, and we have for what? Vertebrate animal. The invertebrate animal is an animal without backbone. Without back what? Backbone. Yes. Without vertebrate. Because the word vertebrate means what? Backbone. And from the work of what? Carolinius. Under animal here, the first animal the Carolinius give us said what? He said we have protozoa. He said we have what? Protozoa. After protozoa, the Carolinians say we are what we call what? Coelenterata, which is what? Cnidaria. They give us what? Coelenterata. After the coelenterata, he give us what we call what? Platyhelminths. After platyhelminths, is give us what we call what? Nematoda. After nematoda, we say we have annelida. After annelida, is that we have mollusca. After mollusca, is give us arthropoda. After arthropoda, give us what? Echinodermata. We are still on what? Linnaeus classification. Which group animal in the world into two keywords? Kingdoms. So in vertebrate, the Linnaeus said that what vertebrate we have what we call fish, we have what we call what? Amphibian. We have what we call reptilia. We have what we call aves, and we have mammalia. Good. So this is what the systematic classification of what? Of Carova what? Linnaeus. But we use this classification for many years. And this classification comprised of many errors before our eyes was open. And is the one scientist that is come in this 19th century that is bailed us out of the what? From this classification. Yes. Look at what? This Carolinius, he put bacteria here as a plant. And bacteria, they don't have chloroplasts. The cell wall of what? Of bacteria differ from the cell wall of what? Of plants. Abi? And we also have some what? Some living organisms, or some living organisms that's what? Share the relationship, the characteristics of what? Of living things and non-living things. Like what? Iguana. So Iguana is what? Is the link between animal kingdom and the plant what? Plant kingdom. But this man also had a problem where he was able to put what? Iguana to. According to him, what? He put what? Iguana to the what? To the tallow fighter here. So look at fungi. Fungi, the cell wall of fungi is absolutely different from the what? Cell wall of what? Of plant. Cell wall of plant contains what? Cellulose, where the fungi contain chitin. Why is it that Carolinius put fungi here and he put bacteria here? So another man that came in 1969. Yes. And his name is what? R.H. Whittaker. R.H. what? Whittaker. This R.H. Whittaker is the man that is what? That saved us from what? From Linnaeus classification in 1969. And the R.H. Whittaker now brings what? His own classification of what? Of living things. And his own classification is what we call modern classification. It's comprised of 5 kingdoms. Based on the what? Type of nucleus they have, number of cells they have, cell wall, and genetic what? Makeup. That is what R.H. Whittaker used for his own classification. So in the next thing that we do now, but let us look at the what? The R.H. Whittaker.